Have you ever asked yourself, where's God in my life? Or have you ever said, religion, it's such a bore? Or what are all these questions about spirituality anyway? If you've asked those questions, thought those thoughts, join us. We're about to explore some profound ideas that can not only impact your health, but your life. Stay with us. It's all about health being more than health care.
Welcome to Health is More Than Healthcare with Greg Anderson. Join us for a fascinating exploration of the complete definition of health and well-being. It's all about our role as active participants in our health and what we can do to get well and stay well. Now, meet our guide and coach, Greg Anderson, 24-year survivor of stage 4 lung cancer, best-selling author of 11 books, and founder of the Cancer Recovery Foundation group of charities. He's an international award-winning authority on wellness who practices what he preaches. Please welcome Greg Anderson.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm so pleased you're here. It's an honor to be here with you today. And this being the last of 6 segments that we've focused on about the subject of health being much more than health care. I just want to emphasize a couple of rules again. And I'll say it very sincerely. I don't want you to listen to me. I want you to think with me. Do you understand what I'm asking there? I want us to really seriously consider these profound ideas that can change our health and our life. And clearly, this is all about you and your health and well-being. This is not about me. We're dedicated to helping you and really thousands of others take steps in the direction that can result in a better life, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. I want to take a moment to specifically welcome our viewers who are with us at home around the world. This is as much for you as it is for these great people here. So join us. You're a full participant, and we welcome you into this time of profound ideas that can change health and life. I want to start by just talking a little bit more about this idea of focus. If you've followed the segment so far, and most of you, I think, have been with us so far, you know that this rope, it's a symbol of a profound lesson that I learned from a tightrope walker. And he talked about focus. He said the secret to it all was to focus right on the next step, to centrally balance the weight of one's body, to position one's foot carefully on just the next step. And if one could do that consistently, keeping the mind focused on just that next segment, one at a time, carefully. He did this on a stage, and he had one of those poles that helped him keep his balance. And time and again, he would say, you cannot think of the ground. You cannot think. He had these aerial shows where between buildings, he said, you can't think of the wind, you can't think of the noise. You think of the next step, the next step. Well, what in the world does that have to do with health care? Through this whole series, if there's anything else, there's nothing else that you take away. I want it to be this idea of focusing on a powerful principle. In healthcare, it is not enough to fight illness. It's not enough to fight illness. We must focus on creating wellness. And that's a hugely different way to look at health and healing. I want you to be part of a growing number of people who are making that paradigm shift. And indeed, we're going to focus on creating wellness in our lives in many ways. So when we see a little rope, and many of us have this here right now, I want you to think of focus. Everybody have one? Let me see these things. And so I want you to kind of anchor into your mind when you see, I want you to take this with you. And I want you to put it in a place where you'll see it every day. And when you see this, I want you to think, focus on creating wellness. Focus on creating, say that with me, please. Focus on creating wellness. That's the key. That's the key. And so if you take nothing else away from this series, take this, put it where you're going to see it every day, and when you see it, oh, that's that thing Anderson told me about. I better focus on creating wellness in all areas of my life. You know, we came by this, my wife and I, who's with us here today, we came by this, to this work because I was told I had 30 days to live. 24, almost 25 years ago, I had gone through metastatic lung cancer, told that there was no hope. And we started by surveying many, many people. Over the years, there have been over 16,000 surveys of people who have recovered from life-threatening illness. And we put these into a pyramid. And it's a graphic that kind of summarizes this very quickly. And that pyramid, I believe it should appear on our screen now. You know, it certainly includes conventional medicine, the physical well-being, but it also includes our emotional wellness, social, that has to do with social, has to do with our relationships. Attitudinal wellness, that's the mind-body connection. And then the whole issue of vocational wellness, a sense of meaning and purpose to life. But guess what was the foundational theme as we interviewed and went through these reports, these surveys from 16,000 survivors? Time and again, people came back to the spiritual as the bedrock of the reason they survived. That's such an important finding. And it is, by and large, it's ignored in mainstream healthcare throughout the world. As a matter of fact, in some countries, it's actually derided. You know, and we wish to challenge that, and I hope that you can join us in doing so. I want to talk just a moment about the difference between religion and spirituality. Religion and spirituality. Some definitions. I think it's helpful for us to understand this. I would define religion as basically a set of beliefs and practices, normally done in a group setting. There's normally some organization associated with that. And that's a wide definition, but think in terms of beliefs, practices that are shared by a group. Spirituality may or may not come from religion. Spirituality, I would submit to you, is more about the idea of a connectedness, a feeling of being connected with others, connected with God, and being at peace, personal peace, in one's life. See, that may or may not happen within a church setting. As a matter of fact, having known a fair number of people who've sat in churches, I know that many churches instill fear and guilt, and that's not the sort of peace that we're talking about. That's not the sort of spirituality I would lead you toward. The type of spirituality I would hope that you would understand would be more along the lines of forgiveness and gratitude and unconditional love. You know, I think the point, I don't know how to make it any simpler than this, you know. Just because you would go sit in a garage does not mean you're going to turn into a car. And just because you would go sit in a church does not mean you'll suddenly have spirituality. This is something that may come through that, but it's also our personal responsibility to develop this. Well, this is a very personal question for me, a very personal issue. I said forgiveness, gratitude, and unconditional love. Forgiveness saved my life. I hated my father, my earthly father, and I felt that he hated me. And as a young child, I can remember being ridiculed and being criticized and being sworn at and called names, and I deeply, deeply resented him and ended up, I don't use the word hate lightly, but I hated him. And again, I felt he hated me. One time I can remember, we lived in a small village, and they had a dump. Do you know what a dump, a junkyard is? Some of you don't know what those things are. In the old days, you could take stuff out to this place to be buried or burned, and that's what a junkyard was. So we cleaned out the garage, put some of the junk in the pickup, and my father said, "Just a second, I'm going to grab the rifle. We'll get us a rat." I froze. I just absolutely froze. I thought, he's going to take me to the dump to murder me. I believed that. Here I am, 6, 7 years old, and I firmly believed that that's what was about to happen. I remember just climbing up with fear, and I thought, well, should I even get in there? Even drive there? And I better. So we unloaded the trash, and then I can remember just turning as he grabbed the rifle, turning away, and I thought, I just don't want to see him pull that trigger. And I was petrified. Well, as it turned out, we lined up some bottles, and each took a turn and two, and it was done. But the damage had been done, not just then, but long ago. And it was imprinted on me that somehow or another it was never good enough in his eyes. Years later, here I am going through cancer and fighting for my life. And I realize I have an issue that is keeping me from being well. What do you suppose it is? The deep resentment I held for my father. I had a woman who helped me along the way, and she said, "Greg," she said, "are you doing the work of forgiveness?" I said, "Oh, Colleen, I've got other things to do." She said, "Greg, forgive or die." Now, even I'm pretty thick-headed. Even I understood that piece of communication. And I took it seriously. And I can remember actually making a long list of, I'm not proud of this part of my life, a long list of people that I needed to forgive. And it was not simple. And I went through and I think there's a simple technique. You call the person's name. Everybody called my father Ted. Ted, you call them to mind. And then release them. Ted, I release you. I release you. And as I thought through it, he came from just a terribly dysfunctional family. He didn't know any better. He was doing, in a sense, many people are victims of victims, so to speak. And that was his case. And so I release you. I forgive you. I want only your best. Only your best. And I would imagine him being happy. And it wasn't until I was really serious about this work of forgiveness. Matter of fact, I can tell you, I concentrated on forgiveness for the best part of 30 days. And I was finally, I have to do this work with sincerity in order to make it real. And I would, I'd go through the list. Well, I forgive this person, and then, my dad. And then I'd forgive somebody else, and, my dad again. And finally, I was able to say with sincerity, I release you, I forgive you, I want only your highest good. Tough work. Tough work. Listen to this. I can trace the exact turning point in my physical recovery to that intense 30-day period of doing the work of forgiveness. I would submit to you that one of the key points along the spiritual path, knowing spiritual wellness, is to release, to let go, to forgive. And when you do, it's like I can remember thinking, I'm free. I'm free. I'm finally free of this. And that's when healing came. You know, we're honored to have with us here today a couple of people who some of you have heard before, and I want to invite them up again. Robert Gunther, a cancer patient who has a tremendous spiritual dimension to his path. Robert, I want to invite you to just come up and share some of your experience, please.
Thanks, Greg. And I appreciate the opportunity to share a story that I've become really passionate about as I've worked through my own recovery. And this is a story from the book of John, and you may be familiar with it. I knew about it, but didn't know it in the way that I know it now. It's the story of the man who is healed at the Pool of Bethesda. And the Pool of Bethesda is in Jerusalem, and they found the remains of it. There's actually two pools. And there's a spring underneath, and the spring would bubble up at certain times. And the belief was that there was an angel that would come down and touch the waters, and they would have magical healing powers at that point. So naturally, this story brought people from all over the land. And so all around these pools were people who were paralyzed and lame and blind and had other ailments. Now, there was one man who was sitting by this pool who had been there for 38 years. 38 years. So close to what he believed was healing, and yet not able to reach it. And Christ came into this pool, and he stood by this man and found him. And Christ asked him, he made two simple statements, one question and one statement. And they are the most profound statements, I think, of healing that I have ever heard. First, he asked the man, do you have the will to be made whole? And the man revealed that he was a victim, that he was helpless, because his response was, I want to be made whole, but I don't have anyone to pick me up and carry me down to the waters where the angel's healing water will cure me. Now, if you or I had been there, we'd probably say, and our hearts were moved, we would have picked this man up and carried him down to the water. What's remarkable is Christ does not do that. Christ doesn't lift a hand to help this man. What Christ does is he speaks simple words. He says, rise, take up your bed, and walk. And the man rises and takes up his bed and walks. And this is such an extraordinary healing. Now, I don't know about you, but there have been times when I've been by the pool at Bethesda. I have looked for solutions. I have thought, if I just have the right medicine, or I just have the right doctor, or if I just have some angel that comes down and touches the waters at the right moment, I will be made whole. And when I feel that way, I feel very helpless, and I feel like I'm a victim, and I feel like I'm paralyzed with fear, or with doubt, or with whatever. And those moments, I hear those words, those powerful words, rise. Take up your bed and walk.
Thank you for sharing, Robert. No, thank you. Wow. Do something. Rise. Take up your bed. Walk. Yeah, within our power. Michael Gingrich, Pastor Gingrich, our Director of Program Services. I know what Mike's going to talk about, and Mike, I affirm you in what you're about to share here and the power that may be communicated to the people here as well as who are watching us at home on television.
Thank you.
Mike?
I want to reinforce this idea, this necessity of forgiveness. And I want to talk about gratitude in relation to it, as well as unconditional love. Forgiveness, gratitude, unconditional love, they mean one thing to me. There's one word that I can say that exemplifies that, personifies it, and that word, that name, is Matthew. Matthew is my youngest son. Matthew was born 20 years ago with severe mental retardation and autism. At age 20, Matthew still wears diapers, which we must change every day. Matthew cannot talk. He cannot walk sometimes very steadily much of the time. He cannot feed himself very well, nor dress himself, nor care for himself. In fact, he needs 24-hour-a-day care. And anytime my wife and I and his brothers need to do something or go somewhere, we always have to have someone else, if he's not going with us, to watch him and care for him. In many ways, Matthew is a tremendous and huge responsibility, and some people might think at times a burden. But long ago, my wife Kathy and I decided that we would not blame anyone for his condition. That we would not blame ourselves, we would not blame each other, we would not blame doctors, our hospitals, our genetics. We would not blame God. We decide that we will celebrate Matthew, and this is where gratitude comes in, as a gift to us. We love his beautiful blue eyes and his crazy smile and his idiosyncrasies, whatever they are, and they're many. But we love him and are grateful for him every day. And in addition, Matthew has taught us the greatest gift of all, that is unconditional love. He cannot love us back the way we love him in any normal or discernible way, but we love him so much in spite of himself. That's what unconditional love is, and it's the greatest gift of all. So we have learned through Matthew to forgive. We have learned to be utterly grateful, and we have learned what the greatest gift of all is, unconditional love. And we are just so grateful for him and for what God has given to us through him, because we've decided that instead of a burden, he indeed is going to be and is an amazing, tremendous, overflowing blessing.
Oh, Mike, what a story. Thank you. Thank you, Mike. Thank you. Do you understand the spiritual path is a decision? And that's what I'm asking all of us to make. Forgiveness, gratitude, unconditional love, to take up our bed, to do something. You know, spirituality has a great deal to do with health. And that's part of the reason why health is definitely more than health care. Now I want to talk to all of us here, and particularly our viewers at home. This series has been devoted to you and to help you do anything possible to get well, to stay well. And I'm asking for something quite exceptional. I'm asking you to give us, to give yourself, a year of your life. If you'll go to that website that you see at the bottom of the screen, or if you need to, call the toll-free number that you see there, you'll find a myriad of resources. But one of the most important is this. It's a contract called Focus. Now, do you remember our little, does everybody still have the little, sure. Focus. Focus. I want you to make an agreement with yourself. I want you to agree, I encourage you to agree, to practice the principles that we've talked about in these 6 segments. The principles of physical well-being, of emotional wellness, of social, of our relationship well-being. To practice the principles of attitudinal wellness, vocational wellness, spiritual wellness, on this contract, on this agreement, an agreement with yourself, are very practical things that you can do each and every day to make that a reality. So I want you to download this document. There's no charge at all. And I want you to sign it. There's a place to not only sign, but date the contract. I'd like you to do that. And then I'd like you to tape this, post it, put it someplace where you'll see it every day. And I want you to let this be a reminder to you that there's so much you can do to contribute to your health and to your well-being. You know, throughout this whole series, we've been devoted to this very premise. This is all about you. It's about health. It's about life. And more than anything else, it's making sure that you know you have the central role in your health and well-being. I want you to focus not on treating an illness. I want you to focus on creating your wellness. And when you do, then you'll know why health truly is more than health care. It's just been great to be with you. Thank you so much. God bless.